A research lab at Creighton University was recently awarded nearly $500,000 from the National Institutes of Health. In a 6 News exclusive, our Bella Caracta looks at how their study is helping to find a treatment for cancer.
Kate Sousley is a senior at Creighton University studying biochemistry.
I'm a pre-medical student, and I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to get into research and see the background of these treatments that I'd eventually be using on patients someday.
She works for Dr. Julie Strauss-Sokup, who won the National Institutes of Health grant to study RNA. RNA-based drugs teach our cells how to make proteins which then trigger an immune response to fight diseases.
It's a really cool molecule that still has a lot of potential long-term. Targets for drugs is what we're interested in, and so that's really the focus of the lab, is to understand its structure, which is really important because that dictates what its function can be in the cell.
She highlighted how the latest Nobel Prize award in medicine went to researchers working with RNA for COVID-19 vaccines.
RNA rocks, and RNA does a lot of cool things.
Student Kate Sousley already made an important RNA discovery in mold that opens up their research beyond cancer to other diseases.
And then this goes down to anti-cancer treatments in humans, but not only that, but also we're looking at antifungal treatments even in these smaller species such as mold.
Ellie Alberts is another student who's able to be paid for her contribution to the lab thanks to the grant. She's a junior who hopes to be in the medical field.
While this is basic science, I did see how it could be further applied to human science, which is what I'm ultimately interested in as a career.
It's really impactful to, discover new knowledge and be the only ones in the world that know about it.
However, that knowledge won't stay within the walls of Creighton's lab. The grant also helps pay for conferences to share their findings over the next 3 years with scientists across the world. On your side, in Omaha, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
And the grant will fund more than a dozen researchers over 3 years to work towards understanding how to make new drugs.